Most people are throwing $50,000 at a steel box in the ground, praying that technology will save them when the grid goes dark. But here's a cold, hard truth. Once those lithium batteries die and the hard drives fail, that bunker is nothing more than an expensive coffin. You see, survival isn't about what you own. It's about what you know. Today, I'm going to show you how I built a fortress of knowledge for just $500. This is the exact same information our ancestors used to outlast the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, and the harshest frontiers. These aren't just old books. They are the blueprints for a world without electricity. Welcome to Cyber Rat. I'm your host, and I'm here to help you prepare the present so you can survive the future. Stick around, because by the end of this video, I'm going to prove why a tattered 100-year-old manual is worth more than 1,000 survivalist gadgets. Let's get to work. Look, we live in a world of one-click solutions. If you're hungry, you DoorDash. If you're lost, you hit Google Maps. If you want to build something, you watch a 30-second TikTok. But what happens when the cloud vanishes? What happens when the how-to videos are trapped behind a black screen because the local substation went offline? That's when the prepper's paradox kicks in. We have more information than any generation in human history, yet we possess the fewest actual skills. We are experts at consuming, but we've forgotten how to create. That $50,000 bunkers everyone's obsessed with, it's built on the assumption that you can just wait it out until things go back to normal. But history, real, gritty American history, tells a different story. The people who survived the 1930s or the brutal winters of the frontier didn't have a reset button. They had grit, and they had manual trifold knowledge passed down through paper and ink. In this library, I don't have content. I have solutions. I have 19th century engineering, forgotten medical botany, and the chemistry of survival. Over the next few minutes, I'm breaking down the 5 core pillars of this $500 collection. These aren't just shelves of paper. They are an offline Wikipedia that doesn't need a battery. And pay attention, because the third book I'm going to show you contains a secret about water purification that modern filters literally cannot replicate. If the taps stop running, this single page is the difference between a hydrated family and a medical emergency. Let's stop being digital refugees and start becoming masters of our own survival. Here's the first pillar. All right, let's get into the bones of this library. If you're building this from scratch, you don't just buy every dusty book at the thrift store, you curate for utility. The first pillar is what I call the master blueprint. For me, that's the Foxfire books. Back in the 60s and 70s, students in Appalachia interviewed their grandparents to preserve skills that were literally dying out. We're talking about hog dressing, log cabin building, and making soap from wood ash. This isn't hobbyist stuff. This is how to build a civilization from a forest stuff. When you read these, you aren't just learning a craft. You're inheriting the muscle memory of the American pioneer. The second pillar covers the silent killer, infection. In a collapse, a simple scratch can be a death sentence without antibiotics. That's why you need a copy of Where There Is No Doctor. It's the gold standard for remote healthcare. It teaches you how to diagnose, treat, and even perform basic surgery with limited supplies. It was written for village health workers in developing nations, making it the perfect manual for a post-grid America. Now, for the third pillar, the one I promised you earlier, the manual of small-scale water supply. Modern life straws are great, but they have a lifespan. This book, it teaches you how to dig a hand pump well and build slow sand filters that can provide clean water for a whole community for decades. It turns a crisis into a manageable situation. The fourth pillar is about the energy gap. You need a book on basic blacksmithing and mechanical repair from the early 1900s. Why? Because when your high-tech tools break, you need to know how to forge a new bolt or sharpen a blade using nothing but heat and a hammer. And finally, the fifth pillar, the encyclopedia of country living. This is your Bible for food security. It covers everything from saving seeds to birthing a goat. If you have this book and a square acre of land, you aren't just surviving, you're homesteading. But look, owning the paper is only half the battle. You have to understand the why behind the how. You have to be able to look at a field of weeds and see a pharmacy, or look at a scrapyard and see a power plant. That's the shift in mindset that separates the victim from the survivor. But here is where most people get it dangerously wrong. They spend thousands on tactical gear, knives that look like they belong in a movie, and backpacks with more straps than sense. They buy the gear because it makes them feel prepared. But in a real long-term crisis, tactical is a target. Survival is quiet. Survival is boring. And most importantly, survival is cheap. Think about the Great Depression. The people who made it through weren't the ones with the most silver coins stashed in a safe. They were the ones who knew how to stretch a pound of flour for a week. They were the ones who knew that a dandelion in the yard wasn't a weed. It was a salad and a source of vitamin C. This is the pattern interrupt you need to hear. Stop looking for high-tech solutions to low-tech problems. If your plan relies on a piece of equipment that requires a specialized battery or a proprietary filter, you don't have a survival plan. Ban shi jang tue mot su an tam tam toi. The library I'm showing you, it doesn't just teach you how to use a tool, it teaches you how to be the tool. I've spent hundreds of hours digging through archives from the 1930s. And you want to know what the most valuable survival gear was back then? It wasn't a gas mask. It was a pressure canner and the knowledge of how to use it without blowing up your kitchen. It was the ability to repair a pair of boots with a piece of scrap tire. We've become so detached from the physical world that we think we can buy our way out of a disaster. But history is a brutal teacher. It shows us that when the systems of the world fail, the only thing that retains its value is your ability to produce more than you consume. Now, I promised you a payoff. I'm going to step away from the bookshelf and move over to the stove. I'm going to show you exactly how to make a meal that cost 10 cents in 1932, a meal that fueled the men who built the skyscrapers you see today. If you think you're too civilized to eat like this, you're not ready for what's coming. Welcome to the kitchen, or as they'd call it in 1932, the survival lab. Today, we're making poor man's meal. This was a staple for families who had lost everything but their pride. No fancy spices, no refrigeration required, just 3 basic ingredients: potatoes, onions, and the cheapest hot dogs or salt pork you can find. First, we peel and cube the potatoes. In the 30s, you didn't throw the peels away. You dried them for soup or fed them to the chickens. Nothing was wasted. Next, we sliced the onions. These aren't just for flavor. They were the primary source of nutrition and immune support when medicine was a luxury. We fry them down in a bit of oil or lard until they're golden and soft. Now, why am I showing you this? Because in a high-stress survival situation, your brain needs 2 things: glucose and morale. This meal provides both. It's warm, it's filling, and it tastes like home, even when the world outside feels like a war zone. Look at this. This isn't prepper food from a plastic pouch that tastes like salt and chemicals. This is real food. It costs pennies. It stores for months in a root cellar. And it kept an entire generation of Americans alive during our darkest hour. When you learn to cook like this, you lose your fear of the grocery store running out of stock. You realize that as long as you have a sack of potatoes and the knowledge in your library, you're not a victim of the supply chain. You're the master of your own table. This is the payoff of the $500 library. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing that if the lights go out tonight, your family still eats tomorrow. At the end of the day, that $50,000 bunker is a bet against the world. But this $500 library, this is a bet on yourself. Our ancestors didn't have much, but they were never truly poor because they owned the skills to rebuild. They knew that true security isn't found in a bank account or a fortress of steel. It's found in the calluses on your hands and the logic in your mind. When you own the knowledge of how to repair, how to grow, and how to survive, you stop living in a state of what if and start living in a state of I can. We've spent this time looking at the past, not because we want to go back to the 1930s, but because the lessons learned in the shadows of the Great Depression are the only things bright enough to light our way through an uncertain future. If you found value in this, if you're tired of the high-tech noise and want to get back to the grit of real survival, then join the community. Subscribe to CyberRat. Leave a comment below with the word knowledge if you want the full itemized list of every book on the shelf. I'll send you the titles, the authors, and where to find them without breaking the bank. Don't wait for the grid to fail to start learning how to live. Buy the books, practice the skills, and feed your family. I'm the CyberRat. Thanks for watching. Now go out there and build something that lasts. I'll see you in the next one.